Okay, we are live. Are you ready to get nuts?
Beautiful. Let's do it.
Okay. On today's episode of Playing Small is Canceled, we have a very special treat. He's a renowned public speaking coach and founder of Speak Like a CEO Academy, helping millions up their communication game. And with over 4 million followers, he's a viral sensation, commanding big stages all over the world, and a renowned TEDx speaker, no big deal. His journey from overcoming crippling social anxiety to mastering his accent and becoming a top voice in leadership communication is absolutely inspiring. As the host of a popular Speak Like a CEO podcast, he engages and inspires entrepreneurs to become powerhouse communicators, and his relentless commitment to helping others find their voice and confidence has been taught at companies such as Google, Apple, and Microsoft, just to name a few. Please welcome the articulate, abundant, and soulful, the brilliant, charismatic, and handsome, my friend Yasir Khan. How you doing, Yasir?
I'm doing absolutely phenomenal. And by the way, send me that introduction. That was one of the best ones that I've ever gotten. I think you know me better than my parents know me. So this was wonderful. One quick correction. I'm not the host of the Speak Like a CEO podcast. That's a different podcast entirely. I don't want your audience to go there and wonder, hey, where's this Yasir guy at? That's somebody else. But other than that,
goodness.
you nailed it.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to tell the team. Sorry about that.
All good.
Yeah. Okay. It's not the first time we've collaborated. We brought you back because the feedback and quite frankly, the connection from the first time was unbelievable. And we really just wanted to go deeper. And so for our community, do a deep dive, rewatch the other one. We're so pumped for today's conversation. It's funny because before me and you hopped on, we were catching up for a moment and you were watching something that I posted earlier today, and it really spoke to you based upon something that you're currently navigating. And I think that's a great place to start. What was it that really spoke to you that might be a challenge that you're working through right now?
Yeah, I like to do research on the people I'll be speaking to. So I went to your LinkedIn and I found your Thursday Consciousness LinkedIn Lives where you're just reflecting your thoughts and you're sharing it with the world. And you just happen to be talking about how you said this phrase, you can't receive with a clenched fist. And first of all, the visual of that is so strong. Number two, it was a great line that was very memorable that I remembered right away, enough to repeat it back to you. And number three, you caught me exactly where I needed to hear it because I'm going through some things with my team right now where I want to control everything. So the moment I heard it, I felt like, okay, this is the universe speaking to me through Craig. Listen to what this guy has to say. Now I know the interview is going to be really good. So I came into this interview in a very, very good mood, as you can see.
Beautiful. Yeah. And isn't that's like a universal topic, I think, that everybody can relate to in some capacity, because it's not typically that there's something external that we have to go chase to conquer or accomplish. Usually it's an internal thing, and being able to put ourselves in a position to receive what's really already here, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. You're one of the best teachers when it goes to speaking and writing and all that stuff, and you speak unbelievable. There's so many places we could take this conversation, but when I was doing my homework on you, I actually saw that when you were growing up, you lacked confidence and even direction. And for some that might know you now, that might surprise them because when you show up, you have aura and it looks like you were born to do this. And it's interesting because I always find it fascinating that public speaking is the number one fear in America.
Yeah,
and when you speak to people, it doesn't really surprise you because a lot of people are petrified. I'm wondering, how did you make that unbelievable transformation from someone that maybe didn't have much confidence to being one of the most dynamic and articulate speakers on the planet?
If I dive into where the fear of public speaking comes from, with my own example, with my client's example, it's not specifically a fear of public speaking. It's more so a fear of visibility, meaning I don't want to be seen in a situation where I could possibly make a mistake and embarrass myself. My self-esteem is here anyway. If I make this mistake, it's going to go down here. I can't risk that. There's too much on the line. So when you look at people who have a fear of public speaking, many of them have a fear of visibility in other areas. So I'll give you my example. When I was a child, I was extremely skinny. I had messed up teeth. I was very short for my age. And people used to make fun of me in school. My own friends would make fun of me. So my self-esteem was so low that I just didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be around people. I felt like if people saw me open my mouth and they saw my teeth, I'd be embarrassed. So it's easier for me to just hide and stay in the corner. So that was my entire personality. So I started reminding myself that you're an introvert. This is not for you. Go get a computer science degree and get behind the computer and just do that your whole life. And then I failed the computer science course and I said, okay, what do I do now? It was lucky for me that I ended up walking into a Toastmasters club, which was a public speaking club. I didn't know about that. And a woman asked me to do an introduction. And I did the introduction and I don't know what I said. I blanked out. And afterwards, she said, Yasir, I can see you're beating yourself up over that introduction, but you just came to Canada from Pakistan. You're not from here. You spoke to an audience for the first time. Congratulations. And it was the first time anyone gave me any validation. And when you're an insecure kid and you get validation for the first time, what do you want more of? More validation, right? So I started doing more and more and more. There you go. And eventually I realized this is not an identity. It's a skill that I just never developed. And as I continued developing it, here we are 10 years later with 4 million followers, and this is what I do for a living. So I still count my blessings to this day.
I think that's such an unbelievable, profound message, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs that are in our audience and community. And a lot of people often don't get started or quit because they think that they lack the resources or the skills. But what you just showcased is that really almost any skill can be developed if that's a desire for you. And you're the perfect example of that.
Yeah, it's like if you don't know how to play the guitar, you're not going to say, I'm a terrible guitarist. I'll ask you, how many times have you picked up the guitar? Oh, never. Well, you're not going to say I'm a terrible guitarist. You'll just say I've never practiced it. But with public speaking, we make it an identity thing. I'm a terrible speaker. I'm an introvert. We create this shield and a label instead of asking, how many times have I actually practiced this? Oh, never. Maybe that's why you're afraid, because you've never done it. And so if we can see it more as a skill set and less as an identity, it becomes a lot easier to develop the skill.
Beautiful. Okay, let's go deeper. No better person, in my opinion, to ask on the planet than you this question. What is the difference between a good speaker and a great speaker?
I'll give you a different answer. I once did a presentation on how to overcome your fear of public speaking. It was in front of 500 students. I came with my 75 slides. I had 17 different methods on how you can overcome your speaking anxiety, because a lot of students have that issue. I did my presentation. I've done it 100 times before. After the presentation, everyone came up to me, Yasir, that was very helpful. One specific person came to me and said, Yasir, I'm speaking right after you. I'm extremely nervous. This is exactly what I needed to hear. So I'm thinking, wow, I'm an amazing public speaker. I know exactly what to talk about. He shows up on stage moments later. I'm sitting there in the audience. I can visibly see him holding his notes, and the notes are shaking in his hand. I can see it. He puts it down on the lectern. He starts changing the slides, and there's some technical issue. And because of that, he gets thrown off and he starts stuttering. He stutters a few times. He mumbles a few times. Eventually, he hits the word he can't pronounce. He puts the clicker down, Craig, and he walks off stage right in the middle of the talk. And if you were there in the room, you would have felt this awkward tension just rising in the room. So afterwards, I went to him and I said, hey, what happened? What happened? He said, well, I just got so nervous. I didn't know what to do. And I'm thinking, I just did a presentation 15 minutes ago on 17 methods you can use to overcome your anxiety. Why didn't you just use one of them? And then he said something to me, Craig, I'll never forget. He said, Yasir, I couldn't remember. 15 minutes after my amazing presentation, he couldn't remember one single technique to apply. So the answer I want to give to you is, what is the difference between a good speaker and a memorable speaker? Someone you actually remember. Because you can have the best language, you can have the best words, you can have the best vocal tonality. Do people remember what it is you actually said? And most of the time, we don't.
This is unbelievable. And it reminds me of a piece of content that you have. And by the way, I encourage everybody to check out your content immediately. And you were talking about how there's not really any boring topics, just boring speakers. Correct. And then you were giving an example, and I couldn't agree more based on what you just said. Could talk about, if I asked you to speak about this cup, you can make it the most compelling story ever. And then if you ask someone else to talk about the most obvious, engaging topic, but they do it half-assed or they're very dull or no tonality, they can make that boring. So there's a big difference there, right?
Correct. And If there's no emotion tied to it, the brain has no reason to categorize it and store it because it's just like any other piece of information. One example I like to give my clients is try to think of the best birthday you've ever had. And they'll visualize it. Okay, what did you do? Oh, my parents threw me a party when I was 10 years old. All my friends were there. I said, great. What did you do the day before that? Or the day after that? Or the week before? They have no idea. So why do you remember that day but none of the other ones? Because there was emotional significance in that moment. So similarly, when you speak, you can do the same thing with your words.
Tonality and delivery, two skills I imagine that you could develop, and two things that are very important when trying to accomplish a memorable talk. Is that right?
Yeah, and by the way, you do an exceptional job of that. One of the things that I struggle because I'm ADHD, I think really fast. I struggle to pause between my thoughts. You're the opposite. You'll say a sentence and you really let it sink in. And then I'll process it, I'll think about it for a while, and then you'll say the next thing. So there's tone, but there's also enough space between your sentences to let the tone and the message sink in. If we're digging a little bit deeper into tone, what is it you want me to focus on? Now, some people think if I just talk loud all the time, people will listen to everything I say. But really, the part we focus on is the part that's said quietly. When you whisper like that, what do people do? They lean closer to listen. So usually what I'll do is I'll ramp up to a point, I'll talk about this amazing thing, and this is what I want you to know. All of a sudden, the audience is pulled in. So that's the importance of tonality.
It's amazing. And right there, if anyone's watching is going to catch a replay, just that one tool, that one skill, you can begin to apply even when you're just communicating with anybody. Right now, all of a sudden, you're able to captivate their attention with a little bit more intentionality, I would say.
Correct.
Yeah. Another thing that you do so beautifully is you really articulate stories and lessons. And those are also very memorable. Is that right?
I find that stories are just a more efficient vehicle to relay a message because I can tell you, I'll give you a perfect example. I'll give you a story to give you an example of a story. I had this friend of mine who wouldn't stop talking about going vegan. Like, oh, it's the best thing in the world. Go vegan. It's amazing. I couldn't care less. I said, listen, I love fried chicken. Not happening. It just so happens that I was doing jiu-jitsu at the time. And my techniques were okay, but I would just run out of steam. I would run out of stamina. And this person I'm sparring or rolling with, he just keeps going on and on and on, and he's got a similar physique to mine. And I asked him, hey, what did you do? How come you never run out of stamina? He said, man, I love fried chicken. I love pizza, but my girlfriend's vegan, and she got me on this 30-day vegan diet. Ever since I did it, my stamina went through the roof. I don't know what happened. I hate the diet, but it works for stamina. You should try it. I'm thinking, okay, let me try it. So I tried it. Sure enough, in 30 days, my stamina went through the roof. I did that for 2 years. Eventually, my roommate ordered some fried chicken, and I relapsed. But the point of the story being, my friend was telling me all those same things, but he didn't use a story. He didn't tell me what changes occurred in his life. This guy, the jiu-jitsu mat, he used a story. Now it had emotional relevance. I could see how he transformed. I could see how I would transform. So again, to deliver a message, a story is one of the most efficient vehicles I find.
So beautiful. And the thing that I'm thinking of is, and you just said it perfectly, is that it helps people connect and relate to it much better than if you're just spitting facts, per se.
Yeah, exactly.
Jiu-jitsu, it's pretty cool. I love to run marathons. I've trained in Krav Maga and stuff like that. It takes a special type of cat to be into stuff like that. I'm just curious, what do you love about jiu-jitsu, and maybe what are some lessons that you extracted that you like that are also applicable for life in general?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm no black belt or anything. Quite the opposite. I did it for about 2 years, and I got manhandled every single class. My first class, I'll never forget. I showed up. There are levels. There's white belt, blue belt, brown belt, purple belt, brown belt. I was paired against this girl who was much smaller than I was. I think she might have been 17 years old, and it was my first class. And I showed up with a bit of an ego. Okay, I'll go easy on you. And she put me in this triangle choke with her legs. I didn't know. My hand was like this. Like, what is happening? I just tapped, and I was so embarrassed. And after I was leaving the class, someone said, This happens to everybody. You leave your ego at the door when you walk in. And that's the lesson I learned. You have to be ready to fail. So similarly, I took that lesson into public speaking, where I used to think I was very good until I met my coach, Craig Valentine. He's a 1999 world champion of public speaking.
I know,
I
Craig.
saw he's unbelievable. I saw him speak and I said, I know nothing about public speaking. I need to study this thing more. The lesson I learned from jiu-jitsu, leave your ego at the door.
Yeah, what a great lesson for life.
Yes.
Right? Because as soon as we think we know everything, we think we know it all, that's when the ego right there will feast on us and we'll be humbled.
And for an insecure kid, I battle it every single day. It pops up every single day. I've got to shove it back down.
Well, I think everybody does. There's a misconception that you kill the ego. You never really do. But those that are really great know how to navigate and maybe overcome it. What's something that you do often that's been helpful for you to maybe tame or overcome the ego?
2 tools help me. One is if I ever get a negative thought in my head that's not helping me get to where I want to go, I've labeled a voice in my head with the name of Bob. So let's say you can't charge this much. You're not fit to train this client. You can't go on this stage. Immediately I'll say, oh, this is Bob saying this. It's Bob's job to sabotage me. This is not true. Just ignore it. And it really helps me delineate what's the truth and what's the internal saboteur in my mind. So that's number 1. Number 2, I like to have so much action so quickly that these thoughts get buried really quickly. So let's say if I have this thought about you can't charge this much, I will just do that thing right away. You can't speak at this event. I will message the person, hey, I'll do it. And the action takes care of the ego right away. It just subsides. I found those to be pretty helpful.
Beautiful. And every day, sometimes we forget, but you have those in your repertoire, in your arsenal, so you're always equipped. That's why it's so important to always be doing personal development.
Correct. There's a great book called Positive Intelligence. The author's name is Shirzad something, talks about this entire concept. Brilliant book.
I'm going to check it out. I love it. For people that don't necessarily want to be an influencer or a public speaker, why would you encourage them, regardless, to develop the skill of becoming a more effective speaker in general? People that are ambitious and maybe good in business, but don't necessarily want to be on stages, why should they still be looking to improve their capacity to speak more articulate?
The one question I would ask them is, do you want to have a meaningful existence? If the answer to that question is yes, then you will have to do that by opening your mouth. And the public doesn't mean you're in front of an audience. It could be one person, but the right person you need. It could be your future spouse. It could be an investor, anybody. You will need to develop that skill. If you believe in something, whether it's a business idea, whether it's a social cause, you will need to open your mouth. So if you have a meaningful existence, you will learn to communicate. There's no way around it. We fought wars with words. We've made changes in the world with words. With political campaigns are all judged by words. So it's the one skill that is entirely social proof, and it boggles my mind that it took me 25 years to realize it's something that I should probably learn. So don't make the mistake I made. If you want to have a meaningful existence, if you want to have any semblance of purpose in life, learn to speak into existence.
I love it. And I want to say this, I don't want it to come across as like from the ego consciousness, but being able to command an audience or a stage, just having that skill positions you as an authority figure, which is something that people want to listen to. So that alone is very useful.
You know what's interesting about what you just said? I recently did a talk, and usually I show up, I have an idea of what I'll talk about, a structure, I engage with the audience, we do some exercises, and at the end, someone gave me a comment I didn't think about. They said, I trusted you 20 seconds after you opened your mouth, even though you're half my age. And everyone started laughing. And I asked him, why was it? Like, because you're talking about public speaking and you're speaking exactly like someone who would teach public speaking. Right after him, someone said, you know what else I noticed? I noticed you kept us engaged for 90 minutes without a single slide. How did you do that? And I'm not saying this again from a place of ego. It's when you learn to speak and capture attention, people notice these things about you that even you didn't notice. And you're able to captivate them in ways that you didn't imagine just because of how you open your mouth and how you say your words.
Unbelievable. And it's so true. Like whenever you see somebody begin to speak, if they're in a room or whatever the case may be, if they have confidence or a little bit of structure in the way that they communicate, you
Yeah.
immediately subconsciously, you look at them a little bit differently.
Correct. There's an analogy that I was given. I forgot who gave it to me, but they said if you ever go to a doctor and you say, "Hey, I've got back pain. What should I do?" And the doctor says, "Oh, you've got back pain? Yeah, there's this medication. Take this medication. It's got this ingredient, that ingredient, this ingredient. It's got 5-star reviews. Go check it out." If they did that, you'd immediately feel, "What the heck's wrong with this guy? Is this his first time?" But technically, from a public speaking lens, they had great tonality, great energy, great everything. But if you had the same situation and you went to a different doctor and they said, "Oh, you've got back pain, maybe you should try this. My clients have tried it. They've got pretty good reviews. It's got this ingredient, that ingredient. It should help you out." Even though it's completely monotone, because of the context, it shows you that I've done this before. I've said this so many times that I'm almost bored talking about it. That communicates conviction and trust. So contextual communication skills are also very important.
That's so interesting. I never thought of it like that. Like a word that comes to mind is like wholesome, like someone who's just very confident because they behave as if they've done this a million times, as opposed to someone that's might be energetic, but there's also a little bit of panic in there. Like, "Oh my God, I'm not familiar with this. Do that." That's a little cause for concern.
Exactly. I find that some of the people who imagine you know your material so well, Craig, that you could say it in your sleep. So for example, someone asked me, "Hey Yasir, how do I upload a reel on Instagram?" I've done it 50,000 times. I can explain it in a way with no enthusiasm. "Well, you click this button, you press this, click the video, and you upload." Completely monotone because I know it so well. So similarly, you'll see a lot of experts do the same thing.
I love it. I wanted to ask you, brother, you have a lot of different things going on right now. You're helping so many people. What are you personally most excited about right now?
Well, two things. One, I'm writing a book on communication skills, but I'm taking a very different angle. There are a lot of books on how to use your voice, what to do with your eye contact, body language. I don't need to publish another book on that. I'm writing a book on the future communication. What will the speaker of tomorrow look like? What are some skills that we need? So, for example, nowadays, podcasting and long form conversation, they're becoming more and more mainstream. People want to see an unfiltered version of a communicator, not the spliced up version. So what skill sets do you need for the future? I'm writing that book, so stay tuned for that. And a little side project I've got going on, I did a survey with my audience. What's the number one communication skill you really struggle with? And by a mile, number one was, I run out of things to say. I don't know what to say. So I'm actually in the process of building an app that's going to train you to do exactly that. All of that is slated for later this year, and I'll keep you posted when it's on the horizon.
I don't want to give away too much. We're going to encourage everybody to stay informed, stay in your world. Is there maybe one little tip that you can share? Because I know everybody's going to be yearning for what you just said on maybe just something. If you forget what to say, what's something you can do? Or if you run out of things to say.
I'll go back to my coach, Craig. He gave me the best piece of advice ever. He's like, whether you have a 10-minute speech, a 15-minute speech, a 30-minute speech, you just need two things. You tell a story and you make a point. And you always have stories in the back of your mind and you can always make a point. So if you are someone who struggles, do this. Go out into the world or think about your experience today. Let's say you are going to get a coffee and you're walking down the street and you see someone in front of you who's walking really slowly. Ask yourself, what is this story? What is the message? It could be, I was going to get a coffee and then someone in front of me was going really slow. And what I learned from that is life is too short to walk slow to your destination. That's it. You just train yourself to do that. And the more you do that, you can pick and choose stories at any moment, a lot like I did here today in the interview, and you'll never run out of things to say.
Beautiful. As long as you've had some life experience,
which we all do.
You have never-ending stories, and there's always a lesson you can extract.
You're a walking story, my friend.
That's it. This is amazing. Before we land the plane, we'll have a little rapid fire, a little fun. What's the best way for our audience to stay informed, to maybe go deeper, work with you in some capacity? How can they stay in your world?
If you want to work with myself or my team, speaklikeaceo.com. If you want to check out my content, it's Speaking with Yasir Khan on Instagram and YouTube.
How could there be another podcast with that title that's not you?
It's a great question. They had the podcast. I didn't have a podcast until 4 months ago. And even then, I have never really taken it seriously. It's only recently where someone told me, do you have a podcast? You're a speaker, right? I said, no. Like, you of all people need to have a podcast. Like, Okay, I'll figure out that world. But someone already had the rights to the podcast name. So my podcast is technically called Speaking with Yasir Podcast.
Do you have guests on or just like solo episodes?
Just solo episodes.
Love it.
Yeah, and I'm ashamed at what shape it's in right now. So it's not my number one platform, I'll put it that way.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Love it. This was amazing, brother. I want to do so many more things with you. Let's have a little fun, a little rapid fire. The audience get to know you a little bit better. Maybe one or two answers. Are you ready for me?
Let's do it.
Favorite movie?
Inception.
Christopher Nolan's the best. Great one. Okay. Your favorite book, or maybe one that's made a big impact on you?
I want to say How to Win Friends and Influence People, because that was the first one that really taught me I can learn this skill.
Is that Dale Carnegie?
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay. Your favorite workout?
I just bought an Apple Watch and a treadmill, and I walk 10,000 steps a day every day, and I love it because I can work and do that every single day. It's amazing.
Why? Do you have like a desk that's on the treadmill?
Yeah. There's one desk here and one desk over there, and that one has a treadmill underneath it.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay. Two more. Your last meal on earth would be?
You're going to love this answer. A original pizza from John's of Bleecker Street in New York.
Bang.
The best pizza.
Where are you
in Toronto. I'm in Toronto, but I go to New York just to have pizza. I'm that big of a fan.
I love it. Next time you're out here, we have to connect.
I will connect with you, yes.
And the last one, my friend, your favorite morning ritual essential?
It's going to be the least relatable one I'll give you. I just bought a product called 8 Sleep. Have you heard of this?
No.
8 Sleep, think about it like a bed cover that goes on top of your mattress, and you have an app and you can control the temperature of your bed. So I have trouble falling asleep, so I can make it really cold at night. And in the morning, instead of an alarm, it warms up my bed to a temperature when I automatically wake up. And it's like you're getting a warm hug from the clouds, and it's the best awakening experience I've ever had in my life.
That sounds mind-blowing.
It's the most expensive purchase I've ever made, and it's also the best purchase I've ever made. Yeah, I could not recommend it more.
Understood. Perfect way to land the plane. Brother, this was amazing. Hang on for 1 sec. I want to connect you after. I could personally guarantee that your best is yet to come. Thank you so much for stopping by today and dropping these priceless, juicy nuggets.
Appreciate you.